On September 2, 2025, Canada broke tradition with a historic announcement. Instead of buying American, Canada would build $20 billion worth of submarines at home, replacing its aging Victoria-class fleet. Ottawa stunned Washington by rejecting all foreign bids, signaling a shift in the US-Canada relationship. The new subs would be designed and built in Halifax and Vancouver, keeping investment in Canada. The world watched as the North American alliance entered uncharted waters. Canada's government framed the decision as a matter of national interest and industrial sovereignty. The Built-in Canada approach was about more than submarines. It was about building a self-sufficient defense industry. The national shipbuilding strategy aimed to end the boom and bust cycles that had weakened Canadian shipyards. By keeping $20 billion at home, the government promised thousands of high-skilled jobs and revitalized coastal communities. Canadians, weary of watching manufacturing decline, embraced the vision of a world-class shipbuilding industry. Relying on foreign partners, even close allies, was seen as a vulnerability. Building in Halifax and Vancouver was an investment in Canada's future, economically and militarily. Critics warned of technical challenges and cost overruns, but the government was undeterred. The plan: partner with experienced international designers for blueprints, but keep construction and maintenance Canadian. This was a calculated gamble on Canadian innovation. The project became a nation-building exercise, leveraging defense needs for broader economic and technological goals. The message to the world: Canada would no longer be just a customer in the global defense market. It was determined to become a builder and master of its own security. The choice was made. The risks were real, but so were the ambitions. The consequences for Canada and its allies were only beginning to unfold. The US response was swift and furious. In Washington, the rejection of American bids was seen as both an economic blow and a political betrayal. Former President Trump called for tariffs and a review of the defense partnership, fueling outrage in Congress. Shipyards in Connecticut and Virginia, once counting on the Canadian contract, faced sudden uncertainty. Thousands of high-paying jobs vanished overnight, rippling through the U.S. defense supply chain. The $20 billion loss was a major setback for American shipbuilding, raising doubts about the reliability of even the closest partners. Industry leaders lobbied for a strong response, fearing a trend of economic nationalism. The political fallout was immediate. Congress demanded action, blaming the administration for letting a key alliance falter. The issue became a partisan flashpoint, with critics wielding the Canadian decision as a political weapon. The White House faced immense pressure to respond forcefully. The shock was not just economic, it was a crisis of trust. The US-Canada relationship, once rock solid, was suddenly on shaky ground. The world watched as the alliance weathered its most serious test in decades. The stakes had never been higher. Canada's submarine decision was the product of years of growing trade tensions. US tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum, justified on national security grounds, left deep scars. Even after Trump, disputes over lumber, dairy, and digital taxes simmered. Canadians felt taken for granted, seeing a pattern of US unilateralism. The submarine deal became a focal point for this frustration, a necessary rebalancing. By choosing a domestic build, Canada asserted its economic sovereignty. The move was a direct response to aggressive US trade tactics. Trust had eroded, spilling over from economics into defense. Giving a $20 billion contract to a country that labeled Canadian steel a threat was politically impossible. For the US, the deal was about industry and defense. For Canada, it was about respect and reciprocity. The rejection was less about technology, more about the health of the alliance. Washington learned a hard lesson. Alliances need constant care and mutual respect. When trust cracks, the whole structure is at risk. The submarine snub was a symptom of a much deeper problem. Canada's decision sent shockwaves far beyond North America. US allies in Europe and Asia-Pacific watched closely, seeing a new precedent for saying no to Washington. Middle powers like Australia and South Korea, with their own industrial ambitions, took note. Canada's move showed it's possible to prioritize domestic industry over alliance conformity. The appeal of sovereign capability is powerful. If more allies follow, the Western defense industrial base could fragment. Joint operations would become more complicated, and U.S. influence could wane. New alliances and consortiums might emerge, challenging American dominance. Canada's choice was a geopolitical signal, a move toward a more multipolar world. Even America's closest friends are hedging their bets. The global defense landscape is shifting. The era of automatic U.S. leadership is no longer guaranteed. The loss of the Canadian contract is more than a financial hit for the U.S. defense industry. It's a strategic blow to America's credibility as the world's arsenal. For decades, U.S. weapons were the gold standard for allies. Now, the Canadian rejection raises questions about cost, reliability, and trust. Allies are wary of delays and overruns in U.S. programs. The Pentagon and contractors face a wake-up call. Reputation alone isn't enough. Losing major contracts threatens the health of the U.S. industrial base and its skilled workforce. This isn't just economics, it's national security. A weaker industrial base means a less resilient America. If the U.S. can't secure deals with its closest neighbors, its global leadership is in doubt. Allies may look elsewhere. Adversaries will exploit the perception of decline. The Canadian deal has become a symbol of a U.S. defense sector at a crossroads. The next moves will shape America's role in the world. Submarines are more than hardware. They're tools of power projection and sea control. In a maritime world, their strategic value is immense. Canada's decision to build its own fleet is a bid to join the exclusive club of submarine-producing nations. The Arctic, China's Navy, and Russia's resurgence have made naval power critical. For Canada, submarines are essential for Arctic sovereignty. An independent fleet changes the dynamics of North American defense. U.S. and Canadian navies will be less integrated, complicating joint operations. The proliferation of advanced submarines worldwide raises the stakes. Canada's move sets a precedent. More nations may seek sovereign capabilities. The oceans are becoming more crowded and contested. The risks of miscalculation and conflict are rising. The silent world beneath the waves is now a key arena of global competition. Canada's choice is shaping the future of maritime power. Canada's submarine decision has brought the U.S. and its oldest ally to a crossroads. One path leads to further fragmentation, tariffs, retaliation, and a weakened alliance. The cost would be high broken supply chains, higher prices, and diminished security. A fractured alliance would embolden adversaries and isolate the U.S. The other path is reconciliation, understanding Canada's motives and rebuilding trust. This means treating Canada as a sovereign partner, not a subordinate. Patient diplomacy, not ultimatums, is needed. New ways to cooperate must be found, even with Canadian-built submarines. A stronger, self-reliant Canada can still be a capable ally. The choices made now will define the U.S.-Canada relationship for a generation. Will the U.S. double down on confrontation or choose adaptation and repair? For Canada, the challenge is to deliver on its ambitious project and reassure its ally. The submarine shockwave has exposed deep cracks in the partnership. Now, both nations must decide, repair the foundation together or risk the whole structure coming down.